Me enjoying yet another Weeknd album. What a concept. What's a concept album, you ask? Well, a concept album is an album that ties itself together through similar themes or narrative. Travel back to one of my favorite albums and arguably one of the greatest records of all time. Good Kid, Mad City. What's the concept in that album? It's pretty simple. Good kid in a mad city. Speaking of which, 12-year-old Frankie still doing alright? Kendrick is an artist with the capability to create a compelling narrative through his beautiful lyrical style, and he's able to tie everything together with the instrumentals on the record. Each track flowing into the next, continuing the story, and exploring a multitude of themes along the way. And not only can he do this while staying true to the culture, but he can also make it appeal to a mainstream audience as well. I mean, everybody was turning up to turn up, drink, sit down, drink back in the day. He took a story of a black kid struggling in the hood, trying to do the right thing despite the increasing pressure from the mad city he was from to succumb to what statistically speaking should have been his fate, and turn it into a mainstream anthem. Only Kendrick could do that. And Frat Dudes blacked out to a song about alcoholism, proving once again that our pain is their entertainment. But a concert album doesn't need to be as tightly packaged as a Kendrick album, and quite honestly, you're going to be strained to find an album that doesn't explore some sort of concept. But for the sake of argument, a track list and a concert album should complement and build off of each other. The artist crafted these songs and put them in a very intentional order for you to consume them that way, and that has a purpose to it. Out of order, the songs may play great in their own right, but when you put them together, they begin to unlock the picture hiding in the puzzle. And this brings us to Dawn FM. In this record, The Weeknd brings us into his imagined purgatory, which is being stuck in LA traffic, listening to a radio show hosted by Jim Carrey that only plays The Weeknd. God, I fucking love this. LA is a purgatory filled with wannabe influencers and Botox. At least the famous half of it is. And who better to lead us through this imagined purgatory than Jim Carrey, the man who has transcended reality.
No. I'm doing just fine. There's no meaning to any of this, so
God, this concept is brilliant. The record starts with dawn, which feels like I'm ascending into the sky, but I'm also confused as shit. We're alone on a road, and then Jim Carrey comes on, which makes me feel like I'm in a dystopian Hunger Games reality. Jimmy tells us we've been in the dark for far too long, and it's time to come into the light. The darkness represents the hedonistic lifestyle The Weeknd's been living, and listen to Trilogy and tell me that isn't the darkest life imaginable, at least from The Weeknd's perspective. The light is what comes after life, a theme The Weeknd explores heavily in this album, the concept of an afterlife. And if this is him setting up his next album, Afterlife, I might actually cry. But there's no rush. In fact, you get to sit in traffic, doing nothing but reminiscing about your life. For us, we get to hear The Weeknd do that. But could you imagine doing nothing but reminiscing about your life on your way to the afterlife? That would be absolute torture. Then we get straight into it, so buckle up, because Gasoline is an absolute head-on collision. He hits us with vocals we've never heard before, and the way he uses his voice on the track makes it feel as if his alter ego is telling us how nihilistic he truly feels. He directly references Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher, the self-acclaimed antichrist, who died insane. I mean, does that sound like anyone we know? Friedrich was a philosopher who said God was dead and science killed him. He predicted that the death of God and the end of Christianity's grip on humanity would lead to the spread of nihilism, which he perceived as an unavoidable threat. I mean, an entire globe of people losing all purpose and reason to do anything at all might not be great for morale. I agree, nihilism is terrifying but necessary. Freddie said, I do not reproach nihilism's arrival. I believe it's one of the greatest crises, a moment of the deepest self-reflection of humanity. Whether man recovers from it, whether he becomes a master of this crisis, is a question of his strength. The idea that the self needs to bring meaning is a crucial theme to this album. This track is a dark point for The Weeknd. He's indulging in drugs again and he has no care for his life at all. He's doubting the existence of free will, which is fair. Free will is probably just something that we made up to give us some sort of agency, to try to convince ourselves that we have some sort of control in this world. And when you lose that, it's kind of soul-crushing. He's raising thought-provoking questions, and I'm out here turning up to this absolute banger of a track. I love Gasoline. But this is the first track played on the radio in Purgatory. He's starting this story from the most down baddest spot there is. But he's trusting his girl with his life. What a romantic. Then it's How Do I Make You Love Me? Finally, a love song. 3 tracks in, I was waiting for this. But it's actually not a love song. Surprise, surprise. He asks and asks, how do I make you love me? Because there's never going to be an answer that satisfies him. And he doesn't understand, he doesn't get how this love thing works. And this begins to show the codependent nature of this relationship that he's in. No matter what he does, he can't get her to love him. He can't control this, and it's thrown him off. A man who can have everything he wants except this woman's love. So he's fixating on it. This isn't love, this is unhealthy. And then the track ends in this intensifying breath play as we lead into Take My Breath Away. You see, it's all connected. It's brilliant. You should understand and enjoy these songs better when played in order. These two are freaky. They're freaky and they'll do anything to feel the pinnacle of pleasure. Let's put this song on pause because I immediately pictured BoJack Horseman trying to trick his lover, Wanda, to say she loved him. BoJack is a character that parallels The Weeknd in a lot of ways, and one that The Weeknd probably watches considering his love of film and animation, animated cartoons. Both self-obsessed addicts living in LA who have no idea how to actually care for another person, but have the sliver of want to be better. BoJack, when finally in a committed relationship, accidentally tells his lover Wanda that he loves her, and she doesn't say it back, which sends him on a hunt to hear her say she loves him. He goes as far as partaking in erotic asphyxiation, which has been eliminating his peers. His reasoning being, if she loves me, she's gonna stop me from partaking in this highly dangerous, highly lethal act of choking myself just to better my climax. And this really shows his emotional immaturity because instead of having a conversation about his feelings, he's trying to trick her into doing what he wants her to do. But he hesitates. He doesn't want to actually choke himself. He's just petty and wants to know that she cares for him as much as he cares for her. And he won't be satisfied until he knows that there's a balance within this relationship. In Take My Breath Away, there is no hesitation, only climax, only temptation. This song reveals the codependency wrapping this relationship, which is another theme that The Weeknd explores throughout this album, which is how to have a healthy relationship when you've never been taught how to have a healthy relationship. You've never grown up in an environment where a healthy relationship was possible. So coming from a broken home, how can he be expected to actually love people the way they should be loved? Don't tell me it ain't beautiful, bro. Put that aside, bro. Don't tell me you didn't cry. At this point, The Weeknd's gonna do whatever she wants, even though he knows better. But if he does what she wants, she'll love him. So that's what he does. It doesn't matter how dangerous it is. His lover doesn't care about life anyway. Take my breath forever and make it last forever, babe. And The Weeknd goes on to carry us through this tale of heartbreak, reflection, and emotional growth with some 80s synth, some dream pop, and some R&B. Some of my favorite tracks on this record is Sacrifice, Out of Time, Is There Someone Else, and Less Than Zero is my absolute favorite track on this entire record. But after the first half, this record feels bloated with multiple tracks distracting from the narrative. Tracks like Best Friend and I Heard You Were Married took me out of the immersion of this album and had me questioning the story that Abel was trying to tell. And I guess looking back on your life wouldn't necessarily feel like a linear process, and The Weeknd did make me feel as if I was experiencing the relationship or the relationships that The Weeknd found himself in. And this record sticks the landing with Phantom Regret, an absolute beautiful poem from Jim Carrey himself. The poem holds a mirror up to the listener and forces us to put life in perspective. We spend so much of our time worrying about meaningless things that have no real bearing on our life. We take moments for granted and let time float by carelessly. Jim puts responsibility on the listener, telling us that we're responsible for the life we live and how we choose to live it. Eternal bliss and happiness is inside of us, and it's not until we recognize that we can actually move on. This ties up the concept of the album beautifully, and who better to deliver this message than Jim Carrey himself, the man who's been trying to tell us the meaning of life since Bruce Almighty, and who had to reclaim the memories of a love forgotten in the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind, and the man who despises the frivolousness of celebrity culture. I actually don't know if I like this album better than After Hours, but the themes and the message meant a lot more to me. And that's it. I have nothing else for you. Like, subscribe, all those YouTube things, do those, and let me know what you thought about this album down below. Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? How'd you rate it? Just gonna turn into a fucking melon real quick. Anyway, peace.